you need to first understand what are the weaker links. So always be very thorough with your tasks. If one thing is scheduling on Twitter or posting on Twitter, I want that to be written down. It's not implied that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Somebody has to do that. So really make sure that you get really honest about what does it take for you to get that one podcast out.
Then come probably the trickiest one, Fab, which is delegation. Delegating stuff in the content creation process. Because here we have to deal with people and we have to trust other people to do or like to take care of our baby, which is our business or a podcast or a YouTube channel or blog. So tell us a little bit about delegating for content creation.
That goes back to what I mentioned before, which obviously is a process that will actually take a bit more time before it saves you time. However, again, hopefully the tips that I talked about before, you can actually listen to them again and think about that when it comes to the mindset side of it. Because once you saw that side of things, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get clear on what you need. From a practical perspective, again, my top tip would be to is almost kind of go back to one step that I talk about in the book, which is the beginning of the 3-step solution, which goes to really looking at for the content creation side of it. Let's take it from this area. What are all the things that you need to do in order to get, let's say, this podcast out, for example? And then
Mm-hmm.
once you write down all the tasks that you need to do, again, you know what you're going to batch recording. We kind of need you here. So please record. But then you're like, okay, what are the other tasks? Audiograms, graphics, editing. You were talking to your editor off air. So, that's the thing. Some of these things you'll find out. And in this case, that's a great example with the podcast. I have an editor too, who is my lifesaver,
Yeah.
literally. And that was a big thing for me because I used to do it all myself and it was fine on paper. But then I realized that I was taking probably 10 hours because I was doing it here and
Yes.
there and everywhere. So my top tip with that would be, depending on whichever content you're creating, once you outline your tasks, then you will be able to see, okay, these are the things that I'm going to simplify by batching them. And then find the one area that is the most time consuming, which you will know because you've been doing it, especially if you've been doing
Yeah.
it. And if you haven't, again, that's almost the first exercise, is to do a bit of it yourself, all of it, just to understand really where your time is going. And you'll find that it's probably the thing that it's a bit more time consuming, that maybe is not as intuitive for you. And that, I'm going to call it area in itself, or that task, is the one that you probably want to start delegating. If you don't have the funds to delegate yet, because I appreciate that, then you can just park that and start automating other things. But regardless which one of the two you start with, you need to first understand what are the weaker links. So always be very thorough with your tasks. If one thing is scheduling on Twitter or posting on Twitter, I want that to be written down. It's not implied that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Somebody has to do that. So really make sure that you get really honest about what does it take for you to get that one podcast out.
Yes. I would like to add two things to this delegation process, Fab, and I've noticed this is one is you need to find the person to do what you need help with, but not one person is going to do everything you need help with. And that is something I find these ads on these like freelancer websites, and like I need somebody to edit my podcast and edit my video and do my website and write my blogs and like do everything, like cleaning my laundry, my website support, my client support. Oh my god, like you have to be mindful when you need support. Make sure you need somebody for a specific task, not a person who is going to do everything. If you do find a person who is going to do everything, they're going to do everything poorly. That's one thing. And the other thing is you need to train the person. Not because you hire them and they are already an expert in their area means that they already know what your workflow is like and what your preference are. Like you need to get to agreements with this person and train them.